Assalamu alaikum and hello to my non-Muslim viewers. Now I'm going to make a quick video explaining, why Islam doesn't allow suicide bombings or killings. So here we go. The question really arises: does Islam or Prophet Muhammad allow? Let me rephrase that. Does the Quran or the Prophet Muhammad allow suicide bombing, like people are committing suicide, people, strapping bombs to themselves and blowing themselves up for, Palestine or whatever, or does Islam allow suicide, like killing yourself and things like that? And the answer is no, it doesn't. According to the Quran, chapter 4, verse 29, according to various translations, the verse says, "O you who believe, eat not up your property among yourselves," and I'm quoting from the Mushin Khan translation. Anyways, it says, "O you who believe," the Quran, I'm quoting the Quran, chapter 4, verse 29. It says, "O you who believe, eat not up your property among yourselves unjustly, except it be a trade amongst you by mutual consent. And do not kill yourselves, nor kill one another. Surely Allah is most merciful to you." And other translations of the Quran, chapter 4, verse 29, state that, "O you who believe, do not consume one another's wealth unjustly, but only in lawful business by mutual consent. And do not kill yourselves or one another. Indeed, Allah is to you ever merciful." And this is the Sahih International translation of the Quran, chapter 4, verse 29. So basically, the Quran doesn't allow, suicide, or it doesn't allow Muslims, according to both those translations, and those translations of the Sahih International and Mushin Khan, and there are other translations, but these are the two most respected translations in the English world. So both these translations were checked by Arabic people who know Arabic and stuff like that. So these two translators were they were peer reviewed by other Muslims to make sure that what they're translating from the Arabic to English was the most accurate translation. So, and again, it's Sahih International and Mushin Khan. They basically say that Muslims can't kill themselves and they can't kill each other. So any Muslim who's encouraging suicide bombing or doing suicide bombing themselves, they're not following the Quran. But that's just the Quran. What about the Hadith? According to Sahih Bukhari, suicide is strictly not allowed. According to Sahih Bukhari, 5,442, and Sahih Muslim, Hadith number 109. I'm trying to keep this video short, so I'm not going to read those Hadith, but for people who want to see that Islam doesn't, or Prophet Muhammad never allowed suicide or anything like that, read Sahih al-Bukhari, Hadith number 5,442, in Sahih Muslim, Hadith number 109. So the Prophet Muhammad did not allow people to do suicide, or he wouldn't have allowed suicide bombings and stuff like that, because both the Quran and authentic Hadith, two authentic Hadith that I just quoted, do not allow suicide bombings, and they don't allow suicide. So then the question really arises, well, why do you find people doing suicide bombings in places like Palestine, Pakistan, Egypt, Yemen, Syria, and stuff like that? Why do you find suicide bombings there? And that does happen. I'm not trying to deny it, and I'm not trying to justify it either. I'm just saying that they do it because of, like I said in the previous video, like I said in the honor killings video, they do it because of backward cultural tribal mentality. They do it because of cultural reasons. It has nothing to do with the religion. So it has to do with they think that if they do suicide bombings or encourage people to do suicide bombings, that'll take away the occupants of, like, the Jewish occupation of Palestine. You have the whole Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and then you have the whole conflict in Yemen, and you have the conflict in places like Syria, nowadays. So they think that if you do suicide bombing, then it'll it'll defuse the situation, or it'll help the situation, or it'll help Muslims, or it'll help Muslims fight against the oppressors, who are the people oppressing in Syria and in Egypt and Yemen and Palestine and stuff like that. But if they do that, they're not really following the religion of Islam. They're just doing it for their own cultural reasons, or their own tribal, or their own nationalistic reasons. They're not doing it because of the religion. They're doing it for their own self-interest, and but they're not following the religion when they do that, because the Quran and Prophet Muhammad clearly do not allow suicide or suicide bombings. I quoted two of the most authentic translators, and I've quoted authentic hadith. So any Muslim doing suicide bombing or encouraging suicide bombing, back in Iraq or Syria or Yemen or Pakistan or wherever, I'm pretty sure Pakistan has its case of suicide bombings, even though I'm not sure of that. But Afghanistan or whatever, if people are doing suicide bombings in any of those Muslim lands, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Syria, Yemen, Egypt, whatever, they're not following Islam, because Islam doesn't allow suicide. I quoted one Quranic verse, and Muslims believe the Quran is the word of God. So if you're doing suicide bombing, you're disobeying God. If you're a Muslim and you're doing suicide or suicide bombing, you're disobeying God, or you're disobeying the Quran. And the Prophet Muhammad said, don't kill yourself. He forbid suicide in those two hadith that I just quoted from Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, two of the most authentic books after the Quran in Sunni Islam. And Sunni Islam is the right, correct, orthodox Islam. So you can't do suicide in Islam. It's not allowed according to authentic Islamic literature, according to authentic Islamic sources. So that's all I want to say about that, and I hope this video clarifies that suicide bombing is not allowed in Islam. And anybody who's doing it back in Muslim countries or the Middle East or whatever, they're doing it for cultural or backwards tribal mentality, backwards cultural tribal mentality. They're not following their religion doing it. So I hope so this video clarifies that suicide bombing is not allowed in Islam. Thanks so long.